Hey there, I'm the storyteller from Nightmare at 3 a.m., and I'm here to keep you company tonight. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps a lot. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. When you're ready, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and relax. The story's about to begin. I've never liked secondhand furniture or mattresses with body imprints. I think I got that from my mother. She used to say, energy clings to corners, to creases. When we decided to buy the house furnished, it was more out of exhaustion than choice. The house was new, just built, almost no one on the street. An empty lot on the left, a reclusive old woman on the right. The agent said the furniture was lightly used, only for the marketing photos. In the end, we took the deal. Fast delivery, easy paperwork, one less thing to worry about. It was our way to start over. After everything, the first few days were quiet, almost clinical. The house was too white. The drawers made that dry, sharp sound of untouched wood. There was no smell, no paint, no people. And that was the problem. The house felt empty even when we were inside it. During the first week, we set up the basics. Frozen meals, new mattress, clothes in the closets. But one thing kept bothering me. The drawer in the guest room wardrobe. Every time I opened it, there was something inside I didn't remember putting there. First, it was an old hairbrush with worn bristles. Then, a cracked plastic cup with a faded cartoon character. I figured it was leftover from the staging, maybe something the movers missed. I threw it out. But the following week, I found a small child sneaker, just the right foot. Dirty, worn. My husband Danilo thought I was overreacting. Said it must have been in the back of the wardrobe all along and we just hadn't noticed. The house has corners we haven't discovered yet, he said. That's not what scares me, I replied. What scared me was that I had cleaned that drawer completely. 2 days earlier, I started tracking things, took photos of every corner of the wardrobe, even put masking tape on one of the handles. And for a few days, nothing changed. Until on a Tuesday, the tape was gone, and inside the drawer was a stained bed sheet. A floral print I'd never choose. It was as if the house had started to fill in the blanks. Behind the house, there's a narrow side corridor that opens directly to the empty lot. No wall yet, just a makeshift fence of wood and wire. At night, the wind hits hard out there, makes the kitchen window screen rattle. One night, around 3 a.m, I heard footsteps outside, light, irregular, as if someone was walking barefoot on the neighboring soil. I thought about calling the police, but nothing had been disturbed, and Danilo slept soundly, as always. The next morning, the porch had dirt on it, like someone had walked across it with muddy feet. And in the laundry sink, I found a wet dish towel. Not ours. One afternoon, I went to the real estate office to ask about the furniture. The clerk hesitated, pulled up a spreadsheet. Everything was bought for staging, okay, she said. No family ever lived there? Not even for a short time. Number: the house sat empty for 2 months, but never occupied. And the lot next door? Been vacant since the beginning. The developer planned to use it as construction access, but ended up fencing the front. Still for sale. I looked through the office window. The sun hit the pavement of the lot like an improvised desert. That night, I dreamed of the house. but it was a different version of it. Same layout, but smaller. The living room had a crack in the ceiling as if the plaster was sagging. The hallway was narrower, like the house was shrinking. And there was someone in the guest room, sitting on the floor. I couldn't see the face, just the top of the head, messy hair. I woke up with the feeling that I'd forgotten something important. It took me nearly an hour to remember where my phone charger was. When I found it, it was in the guest room, resting on top of the hairbrush I had thrown away. Like Joan Didion once said, "We tell ourselves stories in order to live." I follow that thought, and maybe I've been telling myself a version of the story that's easier to survive. But the real story might be this. This house wasn't empty when we arrived. It was waiting. And someone left things behind. Not objects, but fragments of presence. And maybe the lot next door isn't empty either. Maybe it's just out of focus. After the third time, I found something in the laundry sink. I started locking the interior doors at night. It didn't help. The things kept appearing. A child's t-shirt with the smell of old soap. A thick adult sock with a patch on the heel. An aluminum spoon with faint bite marks. Danilo tried to stay practical. Probably came in through the laundry window. Wind knocked stuff over from the empty lot. "And a dirty sock just flies in?" I asked. He had no answer, just said, "You need sleep." But what I needed was for the house to stop reminding us of things that weren't ours. I started walking more around the neighborhood, talking to anyone who talked. A construction worker in the back of a nearby house told me, without being prompted, that lot next to yours was supposed to be like the others. But there was a drainage issue. The water wouldn't go down. The ground stayed soft. Some folks said they saw animals come out of it. Animals, like cats, but really skinny, and no sound. They vanished when people tried to film them, the wet ground. I thought of the damp towel, the dirt on the porch, the constant sense of something underneath. The following week, Danilo went on a work trip, 3 days away. That's when what I now have to call an intrusion happened. On the second morning, I found the guest room window slightly open. The lock had been turned from the inside, physically impossible. On the floor were barefoot prints with dark soil residue. I didn't call the police, not because it wasn't serious, but because I knew I wouldn't be able to explain it. How do you say someone is entering through the part of the house that shouldn't exist? I tried to clean it up. But when I moved the wardrobe, I found something that broke me. An old ultrasound image. It wasn't mine, but the name was partially scratched off. And the most disturbing part, the date matched exactly the one from our loss. Danilo didn't believe it. When he returned, he thought I was confused. Said maybe I had kept the image without realizing that the date could be a coincidence. We didn't sleep well for weeks. It could be overlap. Do you think I'd make this up? He didn't answer, just hugged me. But it was the kind of hug you give when you want to end a conversation. On Saturday night, I heard footsteps outside the house. I went downstairs without turning on the lights, looked through the thin curtain. The empty lot was lit by full moonlight, and there was someone kneeling at the center of the lot. They didn't move. I stood there, frozen, until the figure slowly stood up and turned toward me. But there was no face, or maybe not enough light, just the silhouette of a presence, tall, sparse. I went back to the bedroom like I was carrying glass along my spine. Sunday morning, the dish towel was back, clean, folded. On the hallway floor, a smooth little stone, the kind of thing a kid would pocket at school. And that's when I realized what was happening. The house was asking us to care for things that didn't belong to us. Memories, leftovers, objects orphaned of meaning, and the empty lot next door was the channel, a deposit, a spillover space, where what had been abandoned, forgotten, or almost lived accumulated. And now it was starting to leak inside. I wanted to leave, truly. But Danilo resisted, said it was a phase, that every new house takes time to settle, that we were still grieving, not just the loss, but the idea of what was supposed to come after it. And I understood for the first time that he wasn't seeing what I saw. For him, everything was still concrete and floor plan, and I was starting to hear a house trying to speak without words. On Wednesday, I stepped into the guest room and said out loud, "What do you want us to do?" Silence. But that night, I dreamed again. The same version of the house, but shrunk. Only this time, there was sound. Dripping, muffled breathing, and a child crying beneath the bathroom sink. I woke up sweating. The next day, I asked Danilo to build a small wall between our house and the lot. Simple, bare brick. He didn't understand, but he built it in silence. As Gaston Bachelard once said, "The house is our corner of the world." I follow that thought. But sometimes, one person's corner unfolds into another's, and when the world is new, still raw, not yet tamed by routine, it listens. And sometimes, it answers. Today, I found another spoon that wasn't ours, but I didn't throw it out. I placed it inside a cardboard box, along with the brush, the bed sheet, the sock, the sneaker, and I left the box in the corner of the lot just behind the wall. I think that's what the house wanted, a way to give back or to be heard. Danilo left on a Saturday afternoon. He said he needed time to think, but by the way he picked through his clothes in the closet, I knew he wouldn't be back anytime soon. He had always been the rational one. He believed that if you didn't name something, it would dissolve. But some things grow in silence. And this house, it didn't accept silence as an answer. I spent that night alone, and I heard everything, the creaks in the ceiling, the rustle of something in the hallway, the toilet flushing in the guest bathroom, even though it was empty. But I didn't feel fear anymore, just attention. Then I realized that the things had stopped appearing. I don't know exactly when it happened. The laundry sink stayed empty for days. The guest room remained clean. No footprints, no spoons. The only new thing was a note, written in a childlike hand, folded inside the box I had left behind a wall. "You don't need to keep it for me anymore," I remembered. I didn't show it to anyone. I put it back inside the box. This time, I sealed it with tape. A week later, it rained heavily, and for the first time, I saw water run from the vacant lot into our side corridor. It was dark water full of leaves, but what scared me most was the smell. It wasn't rot or chemical. It smelled like baby soap. I checked on the box. It was damp, but intact, and when I touched it, I felt a strange impulse. Not mine. A shiver that felt like someone else's memory, as if, for a second, I was just the vessel for something that needed to leave. I put the box in the trunk of my car and drove it to a municipal discard facility far from the city center. I handed it over without explaining, without looking back. I came home lighter, but something remained, not in the house, in me, a kind of awareness I didn't have before, a different way of noticing things, of understanding that not everything that enters our lives has to become part of us, but maybe it needs to pass through us as a request, a remnant, a sorrow with no one left to return to. Now I clean the house more carefully. I pay attention to the corners. Sometimes I speak to it softly, like someone saying thank you for the company. Danilo calls sometimes. We talk kindly, but we didn't get back together. I think he needed a place where things stayed in place, where drawers didn't change contents, where dreams didn't brush up against the walls. I stayed, not because I'm stronger, but because the house stopped trying to frighten me and slowly began to listen back. As Raina Maria Rilke once said, a house is still a non-place, but a non-place already loved. I follow that thought, because sometimes the love isn't for what's here, but for what passed through, and passed through us. And most importantly, not everything that enters has to remain, but what remains changes us. They say living alone is a kind of freedom you pay for in silence. And at first, that was exactly what drew me in. The apartment was small, brand new, smelling of fresh paint and grout. I'd bought it off the blueprint, something I never thought I'd do. But after the separation and 10 years of shared space with voices and compromises, I figured I deserved something that was just mine. Keys, garage remote, gate code. For the first time, everything was under my control, or almost. The first few days were more about organizing than living, measuring walls, assembling shelves, choosing curtains. The cabinets came pre-installed pale wood. The building's caretaker, Edson, helped me carry the boxes up. Polite, overly helpful. The kind of man who avoids eye contact, but somehow knows the name of your cat, even though you never told him. If you need anything, just call, he said. Thanks. I think I just need to rest now. That's when he smiled and said, it's a very quiet apartment. Perfect for someone who likes to be alone. I hadn't told anyone that. The first thing that struck me was a towel on the bathroom floor. I thought maybe I hadn't hung it properly. Then the TV remote was face down on the couch. Tiny things, small enough to pass for carelessness. Then came the glass, a simple glass, the kind you use for water, that I'd left in the drying rack that morning. When I got home from work, it was wet, as if someone had used it and done a quick rinse. No soap. I even considered a leak, some stupid explanation. But the water was inside the glass, clean. That night, I slept badly, and I locked my bedroom door, something I hadn't done since high school. I went to talk to the building manager, a young, efficient woman with a vocabulary full of legal terms. No one has a copy of your key, just you and the front desk, and even then only for emergencies. I asked about Edson. She frowned slightly. He still works for the construction company, but he's super trustworthy, never had an issue. She smiled with that polished ease that ends a conversation gently. On my way out, Edson was sweeping the ground floor hallway. He greeted me with an overly warm good afternoon and said, if anything goes missing, let me know. Sometimes a breeze knocks things around if you leave a window open. But I live on the 5th floor. I started taking pictures of the apartment before leaving. Quick ones. Kitchen, living room, cabinets closed, lights off, door locked. That Thursday, I saw the difference clearly. The plant in the living room which sat near the window, had been turned inward, facing the room in one of the photos. I hadn't left it like that. And worse, the dish towel folded on the stove was now spread across the sink. I kept locking everything, but now with intention. As if locking wasn't a habit anymore. It was a plea. On Sunday, he slipped. "Oh, you changed the placemats. That green set was already fading anyway." It was Edson, in the hallway. I had grocery bags in hand. He was cleaning the elevator glass. I had never mentioned the placemats to anyone, hadn't even used them. They were still sealed in the drawer. I went back upstairs with the feeling that someone had lived there longer than I had. That night, I removed the emergency key from the front desk, said I was changing the locks for safety. The manager seemed to understand, didn't question it. I began noticing the strange smell in the bathroom each morning. Not sewage, not cleaning products. It was dry sweat, faint but unmistakable. Not mine. A scent left behind by someone who had only been there briefly. I checked my body, my clothes, the whole bathroom, nothing. But the smell was there. Every day at 7:30 a.m., going by 8 a.m., always within that window, like a routine that wasn't mine. One night, I tried confronting Edson. I took out the trash just to catch him. Said I was noticing things moved in my apartment, that I couldn't be sure but wanted to report it in case someone was accessing it without permission. He listened in silence, unbothered, then said, "Strange, but are you sure you're really alone?" There was a short, hostile silence. "What do you mean?" He half smiled. "Sometimes people think they live alone, but they bring things with them when they move. Habits, memories, feelings." It was a rehearsed speech. Cold, but said far too calmly. Like someone who'd said it many times before. Like someone who'd been in a lot of apartments that weren't his. On Monday, I came home and found the mug I use for tea with water in it. Not much, just a finger width at the bottom. But I hadn't used that mug in 2 days. It was clean, but damp. I sat on the couch and looked around the apartment. Tried to see what here still felt like mine. What really belonged to me. And the feeling I had was that I was a tenant in a story already being written without me. I locked everything and started researching extra locks, indoor cameras, new deadbolts. But deep down, I already knew the problem wasn't access. It was knowing someone had already chosen me as part of their routine. I changed the lock on Tuesday, found a locksmith online who didn't ask questions. He came early in the evening, finished in under 20 minutes. I paid in cash. Didn't tell the building I needed the peace of mind more than the policy. That night, I slept better. For the first time in weeks, I didn't wake up halfway through the night listening for movement I couldn't explain. I told myself this was it. No more signs, no more doubts. I was reclaiming my space. Until Friday morning, when I opened the laundry cabinet and found something I hadn't seen before. A second key, tucked behind the detergent. Not dusty, not old. Sitting on top of a folded rag like someone had set it down gently. Like it belonged there. I stared at it for a long time, then picked it up carefully. Same model as my front door. No label, no keyring. I placed it in a Ziploc bag, put it in my drawer, and spent the rest of the day nauseous. Saturday afternoon, I left the building to go to the pharmacy. Just 15 minutes. When I came back, there was something different in the apartment again. Not obvious, just lighter. The curtains had been drawn slightly, letting in more light. The trash can in the bathroom was emptied, even though I hadn't touched it. The folded towel on the bed was straighter. And in the kitchen, near the edge of the sink, a post-it note. You don't have to change anything. You already live well. No handwriting, just that sentence neatly typed. I didn't scream, didn't cry. I sat on the floor and stared at the note until it stopped meaning anything. On Sunday, I called the building manager and told her I wanted the lock changed officially. I said I'd lost a key. She made a note, said Edson could help if I needed someone to be present for the locksmith. I said no, firmly. There was a pause. Has anything happened? She asked. I said no. Of course I said no, because there was nothing to report. No fingerprints, no damage, nothing missing, just the unshakable feeling of being uninvited inside your own life. On Monday, I installed an indoor camera. It wasn't discreet. I didn't care. I aimed it at the entrance, synced it to an old phone, and let it record while I was gone. I watched it from work, one eye on the screen all day. Nothing. Tuesday, nothing. Wednesday, just after 10 a.m., movement. The door opened. Edson walked in, calm, methodical. He didn't look around, didn't hesitate, walked straight to the kitchen, ran water in the sink, wiped the counter with a cloth, checked the dish rack, then stepped into the hallway, looked at the bathroom, paused, turned around and left. Less than 3 minutes. No sign of guilt, no fear, like it was just another unit on his list. I didn't go to the police. I knew what they'd say. He didn't steal. He didn't touch anything of value. I had no proof. He didn't have prior authorization. I didn't go to the manager either. I didn't want the note used against me. I just printed the footage, put it in an envelope, and dropped it anonymously in the mailbox of Unit 602. I knew the woman there worked for a legal firm. I never heard anything back. But Edson didn't come back to my apartment after that. He didn't have to. Now, when I pass him in the hall, he smiles. Not the sweet kind, the knowing kind, like we share a joke, like there was never anything wrong. Last week, he was mopping near the elevator. As I approached, he said, "Nice camera. Very modern. Records everything, huh?" I didn't answer. He went on. "But sometimes you still forget to close a window, right?" Then he winked, friendly, warm, harmless, and returned to mopping. I don't sleep well anymore. Not because of noises, not because of things moved, but because of how quiet everything has become, how normal it all seems now, how easily someone can walk through your space, your privacy, and leave behind only the message that it was always theirs too. Like Joan Didion said, we tell ourselves stories in order to live. I follow that thought. But now I tell myself a different kind of story, not to live, just to stay alert. One where nothing happened, where I imagined it, overreacted, maybe even dreamed the note, misplaced the key. One where I'm still in control, even if I know that's not true. I sold the apartment, didn't announce it, didn't post pictures, just called the developer and said I was leaving. Their team came fast. Buildings like this flip units quickly. Young couples, investors, people who don't ask much. I packed everything in 2 days, left no traces, no personal touches, no hooks on the wall, no magnets on the fridge. I erased myself from that place like I was never there. On the morning I moved out, Edson was sweeping the entrance. He didn't say anything, just watched, then gave a small nod, as if approving something, as if this ending belonged to him too. My new place is further from the city, older, smaller, secondhand. But the doors are heavier, the windows stiff, the light harsher. I like it. It creaks in honest ways. I bought new dishes, changed my scent. I don't sleep with the lights on anymore, not out of courage, but because if someone comes in here, they'll have to make a sound. There are no quiet steps in this house. That's why I chose it. Sometimes I think about that first apartment like you think about a person who made you feel small. It doesn't haunt me, but it leaves a shape inside me, a carefulness that wasn't there before, a suspicion I can't quite remove, a different way of locking doors, not just for safety, but to feel like I'm drawing a line that someone else no longer gets to cross. I didn't report him. I told myself it wouldn't change anything. But the real reason is harder to admit. I was afraid they'd say it wasn't real, that I imagined it, that he was just helping, that he meant no harm. And in some quiet part of me, I feared I'd start to believe that too. Like Susan Sontag said, all terror is a form of knowledge. I follow that thought. Not the kind of knowledge you can use, but the kind you carry under your skin, behind your eyes. The knowledge that some people don't need to break in to invade. They just wait for a door to close soft enough to leave doubt. And then they move inside your habits, your smells, your quiet. People talk a lot about crimes, but no one talks about permissions that are never given, only assumed, about men who don't take. They borrow the edges of your life until you're not sure what was ever truly yours. And no one talks about how easy it is to walk away from that with no mark. I have a new lock now. 2, actually. And I still sometimes wake up and check the towel on the bathroom hook, the glass by the sink, the way the curtain folds. And when I find nothing changed, I still don't sleep. Because the scariest thing isn't that someone came in. It's that they don't have to anymore. If you made it this far, then some part of you knows. Not all trails end when the path runs out. And for that, thank you for listening all the way through. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It helps this project grow and keeps the stories coming. And now, I want to hear from you. Which story hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one. The woods may forget your footsteps, but those who listen never forget the sound. I'll see you in the next episode.